Hello everyone and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. In today's video, I'm going to be exploring all of the new features of the 2020 Lexus RX450 Hybrid. The Lexus RX has been in production since 1998 and is now in its 4th generation, but 8th iteration as there have been facelifts and updates within each generation. In the UK, the RX is Lexus' flagship SUV and comes in 3 preset specs: Premium, F-Sport and Takumi, with this being an F-Sport. This 2020 version has just received its latest batch of updates, but before we look at these in more depth, let's remind ourselves of RX key stats. Firstly, to view the engine, we need to unlatch the bonnet by pulling the catch to the right of the driver's footwell. Then moving around to the front, the bonnet can be released by pushing a catch to the left, then easily lifting up and self-supporting by 2 struts. The engine and power output is unchanged, so at the front we still find the 3.5 litre petrol V6 that produces 259 brake horsepower and 335 Nm of torque. This is joined to front and rear electric motors that provides the car's 4-wheel drive, and a nickel hydride battery pack that provides a further 232 brake horsepower to provide the car with a total system output of 308 brake horsepower. This output produces a 0 to 62 mph or 100 km/h time of 7.7 seconds and a top speed of 124 mph, both unchanged. Now moving to the car's wheels, at the front and rear we find these F-Sport specific multi-spoke alloy wheels. Different designs can be found in the other variants. Braking is provided by ventilated discs at each corner, 328mm at the front and 338mm at the rear. One of the car's biggest dynamic changes is with its suspension setup. The car's stability is still provided by front McPherson struts and rear double wishbones, but these now come with new shock absorbers and stiffer anti-roll bars with a new active cornering assist system to provide a more level and stable drive. We can now focus on the car's aesthetic changes. The lower lip has more defined central ridges. There are new independent fog lights on either side, as the angular light complex from the previous model has been broken up here. Above these are new independent lateral intakes where the lights used to be. Moving centrally, the iconic spindle grille has been rounded at the lower edges, and now comes with a slightly different grille design. Moving up, the lights have been updated with these tri-blade scan LEDs, possibly from the LC500 models. These are much sharper than before and react quicker to changing conditions. The LED daytime running L below also features a diffuse effect rather than the clear independent LEDs in the previous model. Moving to the rear, the light complexes have a more defined and sharp internal design, and have had the red and white lights inverted. Below, the reflectors have been moved down and integrated into the new and more subtle bumper and exhaust cover. Finally, we can take a look at the boot. As in the previous model, the boot lid is power raising and lowering. This rear boot offers a total capacity of 453 litres, but this can be extended by lowering the rear seats. Inside we find the Mark Levinson sub, the optional rubber floor mats, rear seat release buttons and the Wi-Fi hotspot receiver. Once finished here, the boot lid can be easily closed using the button above and secured below by the soft close function. We can now move inside to view the changes to the interior. Now we've moved to the interior of the car, we find generally the same aesthetic as in the previous model. We find the really nicely soft and thick leather upholstery on the doors, on the top of the wheel, in the central column, actually extends down to the white bit here as well. It changes in texture at the top, and in this model, because it's the F-Sport, we find the optional Mark Levinson stereo system that's got the sub in the back, and also there's the HUD projector there, which can display various information. We've got the clock in the center, CD player, we've got dual zone climate controls, everything you'd expect here. Moving down, there are 2 USB inputs, and I think here there's a wireless charging port, and also you can kind of stuff your phone down into this space as well. Let's demo that out, put mine in there, and it fits, really nicely, and you can access it quite easily. I think there's probably a slightly different inlay design here with 2 cup holders and of course the gear shifter for the eCVT. Inside here, we can open this up, we find 2 further USBs with an aux and a 12-volt input there. Fairly large area, Not the biggest I've seen, but definitely very usable. starting the car, same as always with this, just press that. It is a very wet day today, which is why I'm actually doing this inside the car. Right, the biggest thing, the biggest change in this car, at least the interior, is the screen. So it's an upright screen, it's a larger screen, it's now 12.3 inches, and anyone who's familiar with Lexus cars would know that the screen has never ever been touchscreen. It always had to be controlled via the old-fashioned, or the classic, should I say, Lexus trackpad. Now this screen is actually touchscreen, and let's check out some of the functionality of it. So we can do that. We can't swipe or anything like that, at least here. You have to actually press the buttons. But then, as you can see, it moves very, very quickly. We can go through the different things on the side. And then I think we can probably go back here. There we go. So now we've got to the sat-nav. We can actually move around here. There's a little bit of a delay on it, a very, very short one, but generally speaking, it's pretty responsive, as you can see. Slightly low res screen, but it's not too bad at all. Let's see what comes up with Street View. Okay, let's not do that right now. But yeah, not too bad at all. And then I guess we have to go here to navigate to destinations. Yep. And then we can just go to favorites and recents and address and all of that. And then you have to really press right on the edge here to change that. It's probably easier if you want to go to the general menu just to press the button below. So with audio, once again we've just seen that, and then we've got phone, apps, info, climate. So you can adjust here. Do you have to press? So you have to select there maybe to begin with. There we go. And then yeah, you have to tap. As far as I can see, there's no up or down. You have to actually press sort of on the button itself. It's getting a little bit misty, so I'm just going to put that on. Might be a bit loud briefly. So that's the biggest thing. This is now a touchscreen. The second part is that it now has, if I can find it, oh there we go. So if we go to here, it now has Apple CarPlay. I'm pressing lots of different things. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So it's got that increased functionality to it as well, and they're two massive things that basically just sort of make the car a bit more usable. Before we move into the rear, I just want to focus on one final thing, which is down here. Something we've actually already touched on. Literally, it's the trackpad. Now, in the previous version of RX, there was this sort of physical sort of scroll wheel type thing. So this is the first version of RX to have a trackpad, and it's interesting that they've changed that out and swapped this in with the new touchscreen interface. I have to say this is probably, because you have free movement from your fingers, this is probably an easier solution to navigating around the infotainment system, because on the other sort of 3D physical mouse type device, you sort of had to get the motion right and had to understand sort of the actual physical movement of it. But here is literally just scroll around, and this is actually the most responsive version of the Lexus infotainment system I've ever used, and I've used quite a few in different models. I can show you exactly what I mean. If we go to the screen, sometime in the previous models it was quite hard sometimes to select exactly which menu you wanted, or it just didn't feel that accurate to scroll around. But as we can see here, it's quick, it's pretty responsive, and yeah, it's definitely the best system I've ever used in a Lexus. Before moving on to any sort of driving aspect of the video, I just wanted to show you the rear, because it's actually a huge amount of space. Now, the front seat at the moment, front driver's seat, is actually rolled back into its kind of comfort access position. So if I turn the car on, the seat would actually roll forward. So it's actually rolled back so you can get in easily on the driver's side. And there's still a huge amount of space. This is me sitting up straight. I can even sort of roll back into the seat and like recline in the rear, even with the front seat currently in its sort of easy access position. There's so much space in the rear. It probably has to be one of the most spacious rears of any 4x4 I've tested. Of course, you've got a little storage space here. There are two manual air vents here. There's even rear heat seating, which I imagine comes because this is the F Sport. And then right at the bottom, we've got two USB inputs. You can just about see those. And I think there's something, I don't think there's anything there. So if we look around briefly, you can see there is a huge amount of space. And of course the Mark Levinson system extends to the doors, so you have a tweeter there and probably one that's more middle and base at the bottom. The seats are actually pretty well defined on each side, if we look at them. The stitch here and the leather is obviously really good quality. It feels really soft. The seats are super comfortable, as you know, with any Lexus car I've tested. And you've got a central occasional seat in the middle. Pull it down. So at the front of this, you've got two cup holders, and then here, if we lift this up, we've got a nice little storage area in the middle. And then once finished, we can easily just put that back. What I think makes the most sense now is to see how these mechanical changes translate into real driving. I'm probably just going to drive back to Lexus Guildford, so 10 miles or so from where I am at the moment. Like I said before, there are a few driving modes. We're going to start off in Eco, but probably go through and change and see what Sport Plus is like as well. As with any Lexus with the CVT, you just need to push the central changer down into drive and then just release the brake and the car creeps forward. It's all very simple. Right away, the very first comment I can say, when you sit in the car, of course, it's a very comfortable experience. Every single Lexus I've ever sat in has been very, very comfortable. The seats are supreme as always. They're actually a little bit more supportive in this one. I think it's probably because it's the F Sport version. They're all multifunctional. They've got the controls to the sides, and we've got the controls, the memory functions over here as well. So it's a very, very highly spec'd car. But other than the comfort found in the wheel and the physical feeling of the wheel and how well padded it is, the first thing you really notice is how there's extra weight into the steering, and that's something that's actually been mechanically added in. There's also, because of the changes with the dampers and the suspension setup, you can feel pretty much immediately, if you're used to Lexus cars, you can feel that this still has the same kind of luxury, supreme ride as the other Lexus models. But it's a lot firmer than before, it's a lot stiffer. You notice that straight away. And it's actually something that it kind of surprised me. I wasn't actually anticipating it when I first started using the car. I was expecting the same sort of kind of tranquil, very relaxed, very soft suspension that I felt before. And of course it still has that feeling, but you notice it's a lot tighter. That being the case, of course, this isn't a sports SUV, even though this is the F Sport version. It's the F Sport version of a luxury SUV, and that's really what it is. So you can't really compare it to something that's like a thoroughbred sports SUV, probably like a Cayenne Turbo, for example. It's not that type of car. Starting off in Eco, I suppose all of the comments I've just made have been representative of Eco. Very soft, very smooth driving experience. The hybrid system is more engaged than the combustion engine, so therefore it's quite quiet, and also the sound insulation of the car is naturally pretty good. So yeah, it's quite quiet, it's very relaxed. You notice as soon as you put your foot down to any degree, you hear the engine kicking in. But if you when you get up to speed and you're just sort of cruising along, it's very, very quiet, because obviously the engine, the hybrid system, have already sort of got into a flow and they don't need to be worked so hard. If I was to try and be a bit more specific about how the car feels more stable, there's definitely less roll in the body. The car feels more planted, more stable. Just generally speaking, there's less movement when you're going around corners, when you're braking, when you're accelerating. So when you're braking, the front could go down and the rear could come up, and the opposite could happen when you accelerate. The front could come up and the rear could go down. Of course, there's lateral roll when you go around corners, and generally speaking, there's just less of all of that. And that's all thanks, of course, to the new suspension and damping settings. In comfort, the throttle response is relaxed, shall we say. It has the typical sort of Lexus luxury SUV feeling of you really have to kind of depress it, sort of gradually depress it to sort of build up speed, and for the car to move, it's got a sort of relaxed feel about it. The brakes are good at slow speeds, but if you're moving at sort of normal cruising speed, 40, 50 miles per hour, and you come to a stop, they're a lot firmer than they have been in the previous RX models that I've driven, and all Lexus SUV models actually saying that. But you really have to put your foot down quite hard. Because before, if you've watched my other content, I think I mentioned it's sort of like putting your foot into sort of a bucket of marshmallows. It's got that, there's like a soft resistance to it. It's not a bad or not a reassuring feeling. That's how I sort of likened it in the past. But now it's got a lot more firm feeling, a lot more confidence-inspiring feeling. But you still have to really put your foot down when you're just going at normal cruising speeds to actually be able to bring the car to a halt. So what I think I'll do now is go down here to the central column and switch over. Automatically we see the screens change, that screen and that screen. They get the sort of LFA kind of feel to it. So straight away I can feel there's a little bit more resistance in the wheel. When I'm turning, there's a lot more responsiveness from the throttle. It's accelerated significantly faster. Well, it's just significantly more responsive, should I say? That's a better way to put it. I think the engine probably revs, or it starts from a higher rev than in comfort mode. The car, I suppose it feels a little bit firmer. I imagine that, usually it affects engine, steering, transmission, suspension. I imagine that's the same here as well. But the things you notice most, it's the engine sound, more of engine reliance coming in, the car kind of wanting to stay at higher revs, and the more responsive throttle. Going back down into Eco, very easy. I've had this now for about 24 hours, and when I pick the car up, I reset the MPG. At the moment, currently, with a few more miles to go, it's saying 32 MPG. I've driven over a variety of driving conditions, mainly these kind of small roads that you might be able to see behind me, but they vary in speed from 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60 miles per hour. And of course there's some hills, you have to sort of climb up, and turns and different things, so it's quite varied really. 32 mpg for that. Obviously this is quite a large car, quite heavy, quite long. It's like 4.85 meters long, it's almost 5 meters. Quite heavy. It's got the engine, it's got like just the general mass of the car, but also the nickel hydride battery system, the motors for the hybrid system. So it's got quite a lot of weight. So I don't think that 32 is too bad really, and I think if you sort of daily drove this car and you were sort of putting it along motorways and different things like that, I think that you could probably get it quite a bit higher than that, maybe close to 40 mpg, which for a luxury sort of semi-performance SUV is pretty good going really. I think a lot of others would struggle to get close to. What are some of the things that I really like about this car? I don't think there's a huge amount of change in the interior, as I've already covered. The new screen's great. I think it's got a higher pixel count than the previous one. It looks a bit sharper, a bit clearer. It's, for my driving position, you can reach the screen, as you can hear me doing, from the seating position, so you don't have to lean unnecessarily. I think it's actually been brought forward as well. I think it was further back in the dash before, and it's been brought further forward to sort of facilitate the easier use of it. So that's good. I haven't really used Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but knowing it's there is a great. They're great features. I think they're going to make a lot of people's sort of media experience a bit better, because obviously Lexus, they generally have very good interiors. I mean, in terms of the quality of materials made, at least for the seats, but sometimes the layout and especially the infotainment system haven't really been the best. So I think that the new screen, the fact that it's touchscreen and that it's got those new things, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, are going to be really, really good. I like the general layout. I like the fact that you've got contrast leather in the interior on the central column now, and on here as well. I don't think you had that before. You could have two different leather colours, but it's sort of laid out slightly differently. So there's like a contrast highlighting leather. It's been used to sort of highlight rather than just be like completely two-tone in like two separate zones, if you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. So I like that. On the doors, I think they're pretty much the same layout. There's like a line that goes down the door that's highlighted by, I think, probably a bit of leather or aluminium, and within that is a white LED ambient lighting strip. Now the LED colours aren't adjustable, but the white lights, they're a bit cold, but they're also really nice, refined, classy. They fit Lexus really nicely. The central clock is a really good feature as well. Quite a few manufacturers are doing away with physical clocks, and you're just getting digital screens. I like the addition of a physical clock. Yes, it adds extra weight and whatever, but it's a nice piece, adds a nice touch to it. Overall, it's just a really nice place to be. Now that the car's a bit firmer, it's not so kind of soft and loose as it used to be. It's just a really comfortable, capable, well-equipped place to be. Along the theme of it being well-equipped, what has it actually got? Well, it's got multiple cameras. It's got a front view camera that you can select if the car's in drive. So you can, if you're trying to sort of manoeuvre up to a tight space or a wall, or there might be obstacles in front, you can easily just put that on. You've also got a surround view check, so if the car's stationary but on, you can press the same button and you can check all around the car. And of course there's the reversing camera with multiple views as well. It's got heated and electrically folding wing mirrors, these fantastic seats like I was talking about, a lot of functionality within the two screens. It's got the sunroof above that I should probably have open to give myself some better lighting. It's got I think maybe 4 to 6 USB inputs spread over the front and back. Dual zone heating in the front. Yeah, just lots of connectivity, lots of comfort, masses of space in the rear, a big boot that has an electric tailgate. It's got automatic LED headlights, it's got automatic wipers. They're not new or special features really, but they're nice additions to have, and just a bit of convenience. The front and rear seats, well, the front seats are heated and ventilated, where the rear seats are just heated. Rear seat heating, once again, nice feature, because usually it's just in the front. And of course in this car you have the premium Mark Levinson sound system. It's a good system. I don't think it's quite as good as some of the competitors in maybe the German rivals, but it's definitely a decent system. And this is tied to the full DAB, digital radio and FM radio, and you can look through the different stations very easily using the station lift and infotainment system. And of course, because you have USB and aux connectivity and Bluetooth connectivity, you can connect your devices and listen to whatever music you desire. As far as I'm aware, this car has the same eCVT transmission as the previous RX. It's unchanged. Of course, it's pretty much a single gear, but it has little gear shifters on the side to simulate or approximate as close as possible how it would feel to step down gears. Basically, if you just go down like I'm doing at the moment, it says drive 3, and it basically just tells the computer to go to a certain rev range to make it feel like you're going down in gears. I suppose it's a nice feature, and it can be helpful if the car doesn't respond quick enough to the environment that you're in. Let's just say you're going up a hill or something happened and you need revs quicker than maybe the engine would naturally calculate. You can literally just push down on this paddle here 2 or 3 times, and then you'll have more revs available to you. So that's actually maybe quite a useful feature. Like I said at the beginning of this piece, I'm actually returning the car to Lexus Guildford now. I'm on my way back. I'm almost there. I want to give a final MPG check, because obviously we've driven about another 10 to 15 miles, so it's probably worth mentioning. So last time I checked, it was about 32. Now it's just over 35, and who knows, that may go up a little bit more. But as I said, if you drive it appropriately and on the sort of agreeable roads, you will definitely be able to get the MPG up. If you drive the car in Sport Plus all the time and you drive in quite an aggressive manner, then you're probably going to see low 20s in all honesty. Before I set the trip on this, it was 27.5 MPG, and that was over 500 miles or so, unless it had been reset before that. But now yeah, it's sort of leveled out at around 35 mpg. I hope this video gave you a nice insight of the model year 2020 Lexus RX450H. Like I said, this car is from Lexus Guildford. If you have any inquiries about this car or any of the Lexus new or pre-owned line, please do get in contact with them. As always, all of their contact details are in the description of the video. Please subscribe for the latest content, and until next time, thanks for watching.